Have you ever had to contact authorities to report an encounter that felt unbelievable? What creature caused a major stir in a small Illinois town? Can groupthink trick an entire town into believing in the paranormal? Today, we test the believability of the Enfield Monster.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, it is Tuesday.
New week. A new Believing the Bizarre episode.
Surprise.
Yeah, bet you weren't expecting that.
What a twist.
I'm excited for all of the responses we've seen for the extraterrestrial encounters.
Yeah,
Man, that was a lot of fun.
it was a good one.
If you're wondering why, because I feel like you just, you don't always know what's happening on the back end of creative works. But you probably have guessed that for the most part it goes, Charlie Tyler, Charlie Tyler, Charlie Tyler, Charlie Tyler.
Well, you got the pattern?
Yeah, but because Charlie did
Gettysburg.
Gettysburg live, and the way it worked out with Halloween this year, he did 2 in a row. So this is my second in a row. So
Yeah. After this, it'll go back to normal.
go back to normal.
Well, actually, no, we're switching weeks kind of in a way. You said it.
I said it.
You're like, oh, I'm going back to evens. Episode numbers.
But I don't think so. I still did 2 in a row, so I think it's going to go back to you being even.
Okay.
I think it doesn't matter.
Even Stevens.
Does not matter. I'm very excited. I was familiar with this before doing this episode.
I've never heard of this.
The Enfield. It's also called the Enfield Horror. I don't know if that triggers anything else.
Nope.
I'm kind of concerned what I'm going to put on the name because it's like, what do people search more, Enfield Horror or the Enfield Monster?
Just like hyphenate it like it's Mary.
I just put both. Yes, it's
Oh,
actually
it's
Horror
Mary.
Monster.
Yeah. Aw. We decided to hyphenate.
But I'm very excited. Shout out sources, Cryptids Fandom, Mysterious Universe, Cryptozoology, Cryptids, Unresolved, Fox Now, and Reddit.
Of course.
Also, just want to shout this out. Magic Mind is something we're going to talk about a little bit later in this episode. Something that I really think helps with my productivity. We'll find out what Charlie thinks.
Oh, what's the button? Press the magic button.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about Magic Mind.
There we go.
Here in a little bit. But I don't know about you. I'm ready to get into this story.
Enfield Monster Horror.
All right, so this story takes place in southern Illinois, a.k.a. South Chicago.
The only
That's a
Enfield
joke, it's
I
not.
know is Poltergeist.
The Enfield Poltergeist.
Which
yeah.
is in England.
Yeah, and this is in, I almost said Chicago. It's not true. It's actually way, way, way south. Like, it's not even close to Chicago. It's kind of in between Indianapolis and St. Louis. It's actually 2 hours southeast of St. Louis.
It's not me pulling out a map right now.
You can go ahead, check it out. Let me know what you
I'm
think.
curious.
Yeah, so if you we discovered that if you made a triangle between St. Louis, Indianapolis, and Nashville, in the middle of that triangle, which could be a paranormal triangle,
It could be a triangle.
could be. There's
Typically
triangles
over
everywhere.
water, though.
Well, there's some lakes in here. I can see some blue, but that's where Enfield is. It is
Cool.
the center of St. Louis hyphen
And
Nashville
there's something
hyphen
there.
Indianapolis. There's some stuff there.
I'm excited to find out what's there.
Could be the Enfield Monster. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
So the story begins on the evening of April 25th, 1973.
I don't know. I was expecting 2000.
All the good stuff happens in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and I stand by that. It's like
Weird.
in the 80s, our fashion got too loud, and all these creatures were just like, whoa. Not in a bad way, intimidated.
Is that bright blue?
That's electric blue is what they call that.
Yeah.
Just checkered everything in loudness.
And they ran away.
Turn it to 11. So it's 1973, it's April 25th, and a very young 10-year-old Greg Garrett, Gigi, was playing in his backyard, doing what kids do. And his parents were inside watching TV, what parents do.
Mm-hmm.
Out of nowhere, Greg burst into his home crying hysterically. The parents shut off the TV and rushed over to Greg, trying to console him and ask him what happened. In between sobs and gasps of breath, Greg told his parents that while he'd been playing in the backyard, a terrifying misshapen beast emerged from the darkness and tried to attack him.
Greg, that's just your sister.
When his parents asked him what he saw, Greg described the beast as being about 5 feet or so tall. It had 3 legs, short, stumpy arms with taloned hands, gray and slimy skin, and incredibly large, disproportionate red eyes.
What the fuck?
Mm-hmm. He claimed that the creature charged at Greg and actually stomped on his feet, which tore up his shoe in the process. So there was physical evidence. Greg's shoe was ripped. And terrified, confused, and worried for their son, the Garretts called the police.
So arrested?
Well, okay. That's I kind of have a little pause here because I want to ask you your thoughts. Do you think so? Put yourself in the mind of the parent here.
Yeah.
Do you believe him? Or do you believe he was actually attacked by a monster? Do you think it was just an animal that in his terror he misidentified?
How old is he?
10.
No, I don't believe him.
Do you think
Hell no.
They're just like, hey, we're living in the triangle of Nashville, Indianapolis, and St. Louis, and it's the reckoning of the beast. So we're going to call the authorities.
Well, this is squarely in the Bible Belt, I think.
Is it?
I think so. Right?
You sure about that?
I don't know.
Are you sure about that?
Are you sure about that? I thought so.
I thought it was more south. Like, this is the Rust Belt, maybe.
I don't know. Some kind of belt in America, I think
Did I say Georgia in here accidentally?
No.
Wait, does this take place in Alabama?
I don't know. I don't know if I would. I don't think I'd believe him.
Okay, that's part 1 of the question.
Okay.
Part 2 is, what do you think they relayed to the officer on the phone? Do you think they were like, 911, what's your emergency? And they said, my son's been attacked. And they were like, okay, stay calm, stay calm. Who was the predator? And they were like, no, it was an animal. And then they're like, okay, what kind of animal? Can you describe it? And they were like, actually, my son's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm gonna hang up now.
It was something?
It was like, was it more like a horror or a monster?
I'm thinking monster, leaning toward monster.
Do you think they actually said what the son said, or do you think it was just like our son got attacked?
No way.
There's a creature.
If they would have said what the son said, I don't think they would have come.
No, they'd be like,
Did they come?
Well, yes, the police did show up, and other than the boy's ripped up shoe, they were not able to find any evidence of the creature existing.
The shoe was ripped, though.
Yeah, the shoe was torn. I mean,
okay.
You could trip on a log.
And tear your shoe? Is it a canvas shoe? Because like a Converse, that'll tear.
It was the 70s. I don't know. They didn't get that detailed. One time I was wearing new jeans. I was 11, and there was a plum tree in my backyard, and I wanted to climb it. My grandma was like, don't climb it. You'll get hurt.
Yeah.
And you'll rip your new jeans. And I was like, okay. And then I climbed it, and I fell.
Yeah.
And I ripped
your jeans.
Same thing.
Like, grandma's a psychic.
Same thing happened with riding a bicycle too. Same thing. I fell down, ripped my new jeans, and I started crying. I wasn't hurt. I was just like, I'm gonna be in trouble.
One time I was at the movies.
Yeah.
And I was wearing my jeans that had a rip in them in the knee.
You already fell from your bike.
And this son of a bitch, friend of mine.
Oh, I was like, who are we?
Took his hands on my jeans and thought it'd be funny. And he ripped them.
Further.
And it was like, this is the whole movie with my knee exposed.
And now I'm wearing shorts.
I am wearing shorts.
Do you remember the movie?
No.
Okay. So the police showed up, and there was no evidence. They found nothing, just a home in Enfield, nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not where the story ends for this night. Just a half hour later, there was a second sighting.
Ooh.
This time, the creature was spotted by Garrett's neighbor, a man named Henry McDaniel. McDaniel was hanging out with his family inside when his children came up to him and said they heard a funny noise outside. He asked them what kind of noise, and they told their father it was a scratching sound. Scratch, 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 scratch. Thinking that it was likely just an animal, McDaniel went to investigate, and as he got closer to where the children were, he realized he could hear the scratching too. They weren't making it up. Like there was something out there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was thinking it was a cat, dog, a skunk, who knows. Whatever they have in the triangle.
I think you nailed it, honestly. Raccoon, a possum.
Yeah, all of the above.
A deer.
Right. So he's going outside to scare it away, completely unprepared for what he was about to see. Unless, of course, he'd been playing with Garrett a half hour earlier in his backyard.
Well,
but I'm going to assume
a different story. That'd be a true crime story.
Yeah. So creeping around his porch obviously was no cat or dog. It was this terrifying monstrosity which perfectly matched Greg's description: 3 legs, short arms with talons, red eyes, and gray slimy skin. Here's a quote from McDaniels. Quote, "It had 3 legs on it, a short body, 2 little short arms coming out of its breast area, and 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights. It stood probably 4.5 feet tall and was grayish colored. It was trying to get into the house." Unquote. So this is no Fresno Nightcrawler, but in this instance, Charlie, what are you doing?
If I'm, what's his name?
Henry. Well, we'll call him McDaniels. I think is it Henry or Harry? I don't want to.
McDaniels.
It is. It's Henry. Henry McDaniels.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the legs, you said there's 3. Is it like 2 in the back, like 1 off to the side, or is it like a tripod situation?
I think it's like a tripod situation.
It's really weird.
Every imagery that I've seen of it, actually, okay, I don't know, because all we're seeing is people's creative reenactments, or they're drawing based on this, what they're hearing, their inspiration. So I don't really know, but every image I saw of it that people had drawn was like a tripod. It's kind of like a tail. It'd be like if it had a tail that was a foot, the feet on the tail.
I see. That makes sense, kind of.
Does that change your reaction, like what you would do in this instance? Does that play a big part?
I think it could. It feels like it's some kind of mutant.
So now you're not just going to break its legs like Fresno Nightcrawler. It's got that 3rd leg, so you got to be a little bit more careful.
I would. I feel like I would like grab a stick or something, like a broom.
You have to go past it to get the stick.
Well, what if they have like a broom inside? That's like you get back. Well, okay, so I'm outside, defenseless.
Well, no, you just open your door. It's right there. You're like halfway in, halfway out. That's why I'm saying don't get a stick, because you're leaving.
You lock the door.
You locked it.
You locked the door for sure. What are you gonna go tackle it? Like,
football.
Come here.
This is in Alabama or
right?
Georgia. We already established that. Okay, here's what happened. McDaniels' fight or flight struck. He jumped back into his house, slammed the door.
Yeah.
Didn't lock it though, because he was ready to go right back through it. He went back in his house. His family was looking at him, confused, nervous. They didn't see it. They don't know what he's doing. They can see something's wrong. They were concerned by him slamming the door and the way he's stalking through his house. But without saying a word, McDaniels located his .22 pistol.
I didn't know getting my gun was the option.
Well, that's what he did.
That's what I would have
I gave you complete freedom. It's not like I didn't give you A, B, or C.
Oh, man.
It was open-ended.
I definitely would kill this thing.
So he grabs his .22. Is that what you would call it, just a .22?
At 45, thank you very much.
For him, it was a .22.
Well, I got a bigger gun, so.
Okay, cool. And he went back to his door. And when he opened the door, the Enfield Monster was still there, scratching away at his home. Frantically, McDaniels fired several shots at the creature, many of which hit.
Okay.
Dead on.
That's
which I don't think he was that far from it.
Yeah.
And he knew he struck it. He said he struck it, but it literally had like no impact on this creature. Instead, it looked up at McDaniels, it hissed at him, and it started leaping away, but not like tiny little bunny hops. This thing, like these legs,
like tree trunks.
It was pretty big. Yeah. He reports
they got those Nick Chubb legs.
Well, one of the Nick Chubb legs. Shout out Nick Chubb. Damn it. You had to bring that up. He says that this beast covered 50 feet in just 3 jumps.
Yikes.
Before it disappeared into the darkness. So just like the Garretts, McDaniels immediately called the police and claimed to see, in his words, a monster from outer space.
Okay.
And the police have to be thinking, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
But this is 2 within half hour.
It's a weird night for them.
And they're close in proximity. They say neighbors. I feel like neighbors is a little subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have across the street neighbors, down your street. You know, if somebody lives 5 houses from you.
Yeah.
Kind of like a neighbor.
Yeah, it's like inside the neighborhood.
Yeah. All the articles said they were neighbors, but I feel like it'd be too much to assume that they're like house-to-house neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're within the general vicinity of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, the authorities show up and they report this terrifying creature that matches no known animal description.
No.
But unlike the Garrett residence, this time the police were able to find some evidence of an entity. They discovered a series of footprints that measured about 4 inches across and looked very similar to a dog's footprints, but it had 6 toe pads instead of the usual 4
Ooh.
that would be a dog's.
Yeah.
Also, the footprints made it clear that whatever the creature was, it was in fact walking on 3 legs based on the layout.
Okay.
I don't think I'd be able to discern that, but I'm not. That's
I'm no scientist.
not what I went to. I don't think they're scientists either. But, upon more investigation, they also discovered the scratch marks that the family reported, thus giving credibility to McDaniel's report.
Good use of thus.
Yeah. Although the authorities were still pretty skeptical of both Garrett's and McDaniel's claims.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair.
Natural.
You can't just jump into, yep, there's a monster. So here's an interesting thing, though, and it could just be something he said in a frantic moment. But he said, McDaniel's reported it to the police, that it was a creature from outer space, a monster from outer space.
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts about that comment?
The monster part is really, what I think the focus is here. I think he said outer space because it doesn't sound like anything else on Earth.
Yeah, it'd almost be like if it's like, it's a demon from hell, or it's like a beast from hell, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not saying, I thoroughly believe that this creature has crawled up from hell.
Right.
Or, it's like, I saw ships land in my hill, and I do believe that it is an alien. I think it's just like, it's a monster from outer space.
It's outer worldly. It doesn't fit into our existence.
But do you think there's any chance he thinks it's alien? And do you, as of this moment, have any thoughts that it could potentially be alien?
He might. I don't know. It's hard to know what Heath is thinking.
Who knows what he thinks?
I don't know. It could be. I mean, it sounds pull back to the chupacabra idea.
Ooh.
That this was a monster that was left, right? So that it was like left by aliens.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So for whatever reason, my mind was going to that it was a creature that was like created here and like rejected. Like it's supposed to be a combining of different things. But you're saying the idea that it was aliens created it, didn't like it, so they just dropped it off. They just
left it. Yeah.
We are their garbage. Oh, I think we've said that.
We did say that.
We're their garbage recycling bin. I think that's exactly what we said.
Yeah.
We are alien recycling bin.
That's what it kind of makes me think of. Like if it is alien, that's why it would be alien to me. Because it's like an amalgamation of different creatures that they made and didn't like and just left it. But also it could be said about the U.S. government. Maybe it's a U.S. government thing. Yeah.
They were trying to make a camera tripod stand that can move with you so you don't have to keep adjusting it.
It's in my mind, in my head, it looks a little bit like a T-Rex.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think you're going hard on the short arms. But
short arms? I imagine it has to like stand up a little bit. Like, he can't be on all fours, really.
I feel like the balance this thing must have has got to be excellent. To have 2 arms and 3 legs?
Yeah, okay. So I feel like it, like, almost walks, like, 2 out, 1 middle, like that, right?
I don't know. Does it walk or does it hop, right?
Well, yeah. It hops, all 3, just...
I don't know. Does it, like, bend its knees and just... Kind of like those... like the thing you'd suction cup on a window and then just pop off?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so... So you're not familiar with the story?
No.
There is an animal that is like the most likely this would be, and we'll get to it obviously later in the episode. But I just before we get to it, I want to get your thought. If you had to pin this on a real animal that exists that you might see, not out and about, in the real world. That's a good way of putting it. Is there one on that you think would make sense?
Kangaroo.
Okay.
That's
just hanging around Illinois.
I don't know. There's zoos.
They got zoos.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's interesting. But that's not where it ends.
Okay.
About 2 weeks later, in the same year, same month. Well, actually, I think it's a different month. It'd be May now.
Okay.
McDaniel's would have another encounter with the Enfield Monster.
Came back.
Oh
boy.
But before we get to that, there is something we want to shout out. It's kind of been on it to do for a little bit because it ironically fits in with the podcast and the work. So I have a unique association with Magic Mind because when they were a sponsor last year, it was the exact same time that I switched jobs.
Yeah, I remember.
And it's also a time where Believe in the Bizarre got busier.
Yes, that's true.
And so it was like less sleep and learning a whole new system. And that was when we got shipments from Magic Mind and I started taking them. Mm-hmm. And just being honest, what was like? It's not a treat.
I don't like the flavor.
It's not a treat.
Being honest, it's matcha. It's a matcha flavor.
Is it maca or matcha?
I think it's matcha.
Okay.
I don't like it that much. But along with what you're saying, the productivity of it, the reason to take it, it's evident.
Yeah, I think they call it flow state is what they call it. Is like when you are able to focus on what you're doing. You're just like the creativity. I don't want to use the word within the word flowing, but like It's when you can you feel like you're on, like you're charged up, your battery's 100%. And I remember being stressed about this new job, working from home, trying to get things focused with the podcast. And it was the exact same time that we started taking Magic Mind through sponsorship.
Yeah.
You know, it was something.
We definitely felt that flow state.
Yeah. So they're like little shots, like we're saying. It's not a treat. It's not like a milkshake. It's like, there's some gummies I've taken, like vitamins, like the vitamin C's.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to pop like 6 or 7
Those
of
are
them.
good.
They're tasty. This one is like, it's like a shot glass.
Yeah.
You know, you take it with your caffeine.
Take it.
And it's all natural ingredients.
And sometimes you have a chaser.
Well, you're supposed to take it with your caffeine. It's like a tag team.
Yeah.
It's like when you're caffeine, when you're starting to feel sluggish and you're ready to tap out, and you never watch professional wrestling, but they would just do like that one last move to kick away from the guy, dive forward and tag their partner in.
Yeah.
And that is your coffee tagging in Magic Mind.
Magic Mind is the partner to tag in.
So, and because of the matcha.
And matcha.
Yeah, it doesn't hit you quite like coffee. It takes longer for that to release in your system, but it makes it so there's no crash, which I like because I was starting to experience. It is also natural ingredients. So whether you're vegan, you're doing keto, trying to, no carbs, there's no sugar in it. I mean, it's not like a flavored, like,
it's all natural kind of stuff.
Yeah. But I really did notice it. And I've been using this. Like if you look at my fridge right now, it's in there. So it's not just something that's like, they sent us it this time and then we're going to talk about it and see you later. Like, it's in my fridge right now. Make sure you put it in your fridge if you get it. It's not meant to be not in your fridge. That could be bad. But I like it. I've been using it. It's just good stuff. So I feel like if you are someone that wants to have your focus increase, your productivity increased, whether it be you find yourself slacking at work or you have a creative project that you just can't find yourself to do, I recommend trying it out. I recommend you try Magic Mind. And as of right now, if you go to magicmind.com/bizarre and use the promo code Bizarre Myths, that's plural, Bizarre Myths, you can get 56% off your first subscription or 20% off your first time purchase. Even if you already have a subscription with Magic Mind, you can still use that and you'll get the bonus.
That's awesome.
So again, that's Bizarre Myths, plural, Bizarre Myths. For 56% off, go to magicmind.com/bizarre and you can save on your next subscription. Again, that is Magic Mind. So now that I'm feeling focused, it's good stuff, y'all. But let's get back to McDaniel's, this other sighting that takes place just a little while later.
Oh, okay. It's the same town.
Same town. It's the same guy. It's Enfield. It's McDaniel's. He didn't move. He didn't say it wasn't a horror movie. I'm going to sell my house.
Yeah, he's just like,
shit hit the fan. It's like, I'm out of here. In what economy?
I wonder if there's a grudge between this guy and the monster now.
I think I'm not saying it's territorial.
Oh,
but it feels like this is a bad idea. This is my turf. This is my spot. Do you know how bad we were talking about house leaving and stuff like that?
Yeah.
You know how bad it'd be with our current interest rates if we had to leave because of a haunting?
Oh no.
I know you're already, you're peeping. But imagine if you had to leave because of a haunting.
Oh.
The real haunting is going from 3 to 8%. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, the real horror there is seeing your finances be gouged.
Anyway, back to McDaniel's. So it's 3 a.m. It's the witching hour.
Oh.
It's May 6th. Same year. Obviously, it was just a little while later. And McDaniel's was woken up to the sound of his neighbor's dog barking in a frenzy. Groggily, he got out of bed to see what was causing this dog to constantly bark. He looked out his window, and right there by his house on the train tracks was the very same creature that he had seen just a few weeks before.
Train just
boom. He's like, well, that's that. He described the creature as very casually trotting up and down the railway tracks. He went outside to get a better look at this creature, but he didn't take his .22, and he had no intention of shooting it. This time, he just wanted to look at it. He wanted to observe it. He wanted to see what this thing really was.
Did he have a camera?
He'd have to have like
a Polaroid.
Was Polaroids around then? I thought it was the 80s.
Absolutely.
It's not 70s?
I'm pretty sure.
Or it is 70s?
I'm pretty sure there are Polaroids you could have used.
He didn't have one. Dude, It's 2023. And you know how many people, it's on your phone and people don't take photos.
That's pretty crazy too.
I
don't
think he
know.
was. I think he was frozen by the moment. I think it was not. I don't think he was rationally thinking.
He was just kind of like
honestly,
observing.
He should have got his gun.
Yeah.
I don't think he was I don't think he made the conscious decision. I'm not going to hurt it. I'm not going to get my gun. I think there was no decision. I think I see this thing.
Yeah.
I want to get closer, maybe to better identify it or just to see what it is.
Just using reptile brain, just not really thinking.
Yeah.
It's 3 a.m. He just got up.
Creature outside. Want to see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he goes out there, tries to see what it is, but eventually the creature strolled off into the night. Here's a quote from McDaniels. Quote, "I saw something moving out on the railroad track, and there it stood. I didn't shoot at it or anything. It started on down the railroad track. It wasn't in a hurry or anything."
Oof.
Unquote. No hurry.
It's like
At
that.
3 a.m.
It's like that movie, Stand By Me. They go across the railroad track
Is it like that?
looking for the body.
Is that what this moment made you think of?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
The monster going down the railroad track. Yeah.
Bye,
If he-
Henry.
If he had Will Wheaton and some other kids next to him, it would have been just like Stand By Me.
Sorry about scratching your house. And tell Greg I'm sorry. I liked his Jordans.
I think
That's
Converse.
Jordans weren't around.
Yeah,
he was
definitely.
not playing in the 70s.
No.
So as days and weeks went by, McDaniels told his family, he told his friends, he told neighbors about this
Did not
monstrosity.
shut up about it.
No, he was like those people with picket fences and signs that stand outside buildings and just megaphones shouting, "I've seen the creature. It is real." None of this is true. What I'm just saying.
Okay, I was saying, was he really?
No,
That's good.
but he was telling people. He did call into a couple of radio stations.
Okay.
WWKI Indiana. He called because
You gotta do the real radio. WWKI Indiana.
just to talk about what he witnessed. So word spread about this beast, obviously, and this is when it started becoming dubbed the Enfield Monster and the Enfield Horror. Which one? I don't know. They didn't put a whiteboard out with like a, what do you guys think it should be?
There was no go to the polls.
Town hall.
Yeah.
All ye in favor?
I don't think it was a monster.
I think that's what people talked
I
like
think
in
it
the
was all-
70s.
A horror. What was it?
All ye raise thy hands if you believe it's a horror.
Maybe in the 1470s.
Now, who you calling a whore? So, as it is growing, the idea of the Enfield Monster, stories started growing, and it became more than just Henry and Greg's story. It started people saying, "Oh yeah, I think it was stalking around, yards, and I think it is, out here." And people started paying attention to it, and it's like neighbors started staying awake longer. People started peering off into the darkness and double checking that they've locked their doors before going to bed. It became a thing in the town. Like everybody was kind of aware of it. Everybody was heightened senses about, what if I see this thing? I don't want to see this thing. That's really scary. And on the flip side, so that's the town, that's Enfield. On the other side of the spectrum, other people from other towns flocked to Enfield because they wanted to catch a glimpse of
Really?
the Enfield Monster.
This kind of reminds me a little bit of the Dover Demon.
Yeah,
There are only a couple settings, but people blew up because it was crazy.
There's an investigator that we're going to get to. It's just a small portion. But they kind of bring in the same, I think it's the same guy who investigated this, did do Dover Demon.
Oh, okay.
And he kind of drew comparisons. And they also mentioned, I don't have it in here, but John Keel, because of just like neighbors or neighborhoods having an entity kind of around it.
Yeah.
It kind of has that through line. So between Dover Demon, Mothman, and here, it's been kind of like people have been trying to draw connections.
Mm-hmm.
So the town is already dealing with this story of this entity that they're fearing they might see. But now this quiet town is having all these outsiders come, and it's becoming like a whole publicity thing. And it got to the point where the sheriff actually warned McDaniel to stop talking about this, stop spreading these crazy stories, and just keep it down.
Not a great look when the cop tells you to shut up.
No, it's not. But I think they're worried about the general safety of the town.
Yeah. Makes
because
sense.
even though there's people that are coming just to catch a glimpse of the creature, there were also people who were self-proclaimed monster hunters.
Oh boy.
So not only do you have people sightseeing in your town, but you have people with like guns coming late at night into your neighborhood, and they were like drinking heavily,
That's really
aggressive.
sketchy. That's
and they're
real
just like,
sketchy.
we're going to catch us.
Ooh.
We're going to catch us
Catch a case.
Enfield Monster.
Yeah.
So the villagers, that makes it sound like it's really, the people were alarmed.
With their pitchforks, their torches.
No, it's not them. It's the monster hunters. They got the pitchforks. They got the guns, and they're alarming everyone. They're drinking late, and they're being loud, and they're crazy. But as time passed, the monster hunters pushed the stigma and the legend of the Enfield Monster even further because some of them had their own reported sightings.
Oh,
there were a couple hunters from Indiana named Mike and Roger who claimed to see something that resembled a large gray monkey dashing through the underbrush. They quickly had their guns aimed. I feel like they already had their guns.
They just had them out.
They weren't a holster.
They were
but
they were pre-cocked.
Regardless, the creature moved too quickly for them to pull off a shot. On a separate night, 5 hunters were arrested by the local police for hunting violations and public safety charges.
I thought you said they were arrested by the monster.
No. This was caused by opening fire in unison on what they all claimed was a, quote, gray, hairy creature they spotted lurking in the woods, unquote.
I mean, it matches the description, though.
Gray monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they saw it?
I don't know. We'll get to that.
Okay.
A couple of the hunters claimed that their aim had been accurate and they hit the beast, but very much like McDaniels, their bullets seemed to have zero effect on the Enfield Monster. So you got monsters, hunters shooting, people getting arrested, locals being alarmed. So keeping a very strong skeptical stance, the sheriff, Roy Posher Jr., did not believe a word that they said. He believed that they were a threat and just simply thrill seekers that were out drinking and trying to raise hell. Here's a quote from Sheriff Roy Posher Jr. Quote, "Those kids were out there shooting at anything that moved. Ever since this creature business got started, we've had people milling around here with their guns and drinking, and if I don't put a stop to it, somebody's going to get killed. People around here are afraid to let their kids out at night, and it's not because of the monster. It's because they're afraid their kids will get shot. There is no monster," unquote.
Why are you letting your kids out at night?
Well, I mean, technically right now, 5 o'clock is night.
Okay. All right. So it's like midnight. You don't put your kids out to go to the bathroom.
Go out there and
get your
here's a poop bag. I don't know. So this is May. So it probably gets dark around 7 in May.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 o'clock, still playing. I don't know. I mean, he's trying to make a point too.
I see his point.
He's going extreme on the other end.
Yeah.
To make his point. So the final major sighting of the Enfield Horror was made by a group of 4 men that were searching the area, one of which was Rick Rainbow, who is the news director of the radio station. Do you want to do it again? WWKI?
WWKI. What is it, Indianapolis?
In Kokomo, Indiana.
WWKI in Kokomo, Indiana.
And he brought another man from the radio station, Ed Phillips, who is a big game hunter and brought a pretty extensive arsenal of specialty weapons and tranquilizer guns.
I don't like him.
They're trying. Well, big game hunting is terrible.
Yeah,
I'm not getting into that, but yeah. So he's not trying to kill the thing. He's trying to catch the thing.
Okay.
He's got the tranquilizers. He wants to show it off in his museum. He might not have a museum, but if he'll buy a museum.
He'll get a museum.
He will. That is the least of his worries if he catches this thing. Museum, Ed's museum.
Yeah.
That'd be somewhere when you're driving west.
You would see that.
And you'd stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd stop. Kind of like, well, you never watched it, but the second Jeepers Creepers, it's not a museum, but he's got the creature up on the.
He does?
Yeah.
In the museum?
In his house. His barn.
Huh. He has the creature in his barn?
Waiting. Because it's every 23 years that the thing comes alive. So he's just got it up there waiting for it to come back.
That's stupid.
So anyway, the group claimed that they'd seen a gray, stooped over, ape-like creature loping through the woods near an abandoned house not far from the McDaniels property. They reported that the creature was moving at a speed far quicker than any man could and disappeared in the forest before they were able to get any type of... Well, it was before Ed was able to shoot it, and it was before Rick Rainbow was able to capture evidence. Like he was there with film crew camera. Like he was trying to make not like a documentary. He wanted to capture it on film where it seemed more like Ed was like, I want to physically capture it. But, and this is a little bit of a bummer, in my opinion, once the creature broke through the tree line and got away, it let out this blood-curdling wail.
Oh.
And it's reported that Rick Rainbow was able to capture the screech. But there's no evidence. There's no audio file. You can't find it online. It maybe it was never digitized and uploaded. So
What a bummer.
you can't hear it. But apparently it existed. So very quickly about an investigation. So cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman, who later wrote an article about the experience in July of 1974, investigated the area, checked it out, and tried to figure out what was going on here. The article was titled "Swamp Slobs Invade Illinois."
Oh, wow.
It was published in the Fate magazine.
Wow.
So Lauren took time to examine the areas that the Enfield Monster had been seen, listen to the Rainbow recording. He had it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how he got it. And interview the locals. When he was specifically at the McDaniels residence, he actually claimed to hear the beasts screech himself.
Really? So it's still hanging out around McDaniel's house.
Apparently, a year later, this is a quote from Coleman. Quote, "I traveled to Enfield, interviewed the witnesses, looked at the siding of the house the Enfield Monster had damaged, heard some strange screeching, banshee-like sounds, and I walked away bewildered." Unquote.
Wow.
So let's get to some skepticism and some theories.
Okay.
All right, so there's three things in terms of skepticism and theories that we'll talk about here. The first thing is the animal. The animal that it potentially was mistaken as.
Yeah.
A kangaroo.
Was it?
A kangaroo.
That's all I could think of. That's the only thing that makes sense.
So on May 16th of 1973, a man named Alan Yorkshire of Elyria, Ohio, which is west of Cleveland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrote a letter to the newspaper in Enfield, which apparently they have no newspaper.
Oh.
That's probably why the radio they had to call into Indiana.
Yeah.
But so the letter was sent to the city treasurer, who passed it on to the police.
Okay.
So Yorkshire believed that the Enfield Monster was his kangaroo.
His
kangaroo Macy, who had either escaped or been stolen.
Kangaroo thieves.
Kangaroo thieves. He offered $500 reward for the animal's return and announced plans to visit the city to search for the animal. Just to be clear, according to Google Maps, Elyria to Enfield is about a 7-day hike.
Yikes.
I don't know how long hopping that is.
I
but
think they can go faster than humans, right? Probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I bet a kangaroo could get there in 5.5.
Yeah.
If they wanted to.
Interesting.
But beyond this story in Alan Yorkshire, people do theorize that if it was an animal, that a kangaroo would just make sense.
Yeah.
It hops. The tail could be mistaken as the third leg in the middle of the night, when it's dark. Kangaroos can be aggressive.
Silly
little arms. And they can also be gray.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it sounds like Enfield doesn't have a zoo, but maybe it escaped from somewhere else too.
Maybe a private zoo.
Or like somebody's personal pet.
Yeah.
It got too big. They're like, I'm going to let you out now. It's like hot pot bite. And that's that.
Yeah.
But McDaniels is like, I've seen a kangaroo. I've seen kangaroos. And this was no kangaroo.
No kangaroo.
He does truly believe that it was not a kangaroo.
Okay.
The second theory is that it just never existed. It was just a mistaken identity. Not necessarily as a kangaroo, but that the boy and McDaniels they saw something, they couldn't explain it. It was some other animal, and then the hunters came and it just fell into like mass hysteria.
What was the other animal though?
A skunk,
A dog.
It's interesting that none of the theories say monkey, like monkey from a zoo, because multiple times people said ape-like.
Yeah.
But it's not 3 legs.
No.
Yeah. The third theory is groupthink, which is kind of similar to the mass hysteria.
Yeah.
Psychology Today's definition, groupthink is a phenomenon that occurs when a group of well-intentioned people make irrational or non-optimal decisions spurred by the urge to conform or the belief that dissent is impossible. The whole town started buying into the idea of the Enfield Horror, and that's what made it what it was. And people started believing it was there, and it was, I don't want to say it was cool to think it, but it's like, you don't want to be the person that disproves it. I feel like we talked about this during Charlie Red Star.
Yeah, I feel like
the UFO in
it was
Canada.
so popular, and it's like, I don't think it's true. And it's like, well, we hate you.
We'd rather it be true, you know?
Yeah.
But then you just like, you get people and they're like, I saw it. And then, oh, if they saw it, then it must be true. Or it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I think I saw it too. And you start tricking yourself.
And then you cut to the monster who's got a cool jacket on. He's smoking a cigarette. It's like, be real cool if you believed me.
Yeah. Believe in me and I'll believe in y'all.
Yeah. It's like, oh, man.
So in 1978, David L. Miller, Kenneth J. Midas, and Richard A. Mathers of West Illinois University wrote an essay about the Enfield Monster for the Sociological Quarterly. It was called A Critical Examination of the Social Contagion Image of Collective Behavior, the Case of the Enfield Monster.
Wow. Sounds like science.
Basically, they talk about the groupthink idea and how it was a mob mentality that caused people to believe in the same hallucination of the report.
So what happened to the little boy? If it's mob mentality, the first kid.
Yeah.
What happened
Well, they're
there?
thinking more of the later effect. Like, that's like they're going to the extremes. Like, only through groupthink leading into mob mentality is how you can have people being arrested for shooting guns and going so extreme that they truly believe that this creature existed.
I understand
With
that.
the boy and with McDaniels, the fact that they were neighbors, but they didn't communicate. They had two similar experiences within a half hour of each other. I don't know. This doesn't perfectly explain that.
No,
unless it was a kangaroo. Unless it was a kangaroo or it was an animal that they both misidentified, and then that was the only time it existed.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm okay.
I have a hard time buying that.
I'm okay believing most of the stuff after that night is mass hysteria and groupthink.
I think most of it, although I do think the group of the 5 that shot into the woods, that saw something that was gray and big.
Well, which one? The group of 5 or the one with Rick Rainbow?
The group of 5
Okay.
that shot into the woods, that got arrested.
Well, and Rick Rainbow has a screech, apparently, that we'll never hear.
We'll never hear it.
What does a
So-
kangaroo sound like?
Boy, mate. This is a knife.
Yeah, I don't know. So those are the main theories. I do have, and this is actually very unusual. I wanted to shout the person out. I found a Reddit story, and I exited out of the tab. Actually, if you want to know the truth, my Google Chrome had to update, and I've been prolonging it, and then it updated on its own, and it said, "Do you want to restore the pages?" And I clicked it, and nothing happened. So I lost the tab with the Reddit story, but I had already copied it. So what I would do in those instances is just copy the exact word for word, like a paragraph, put it in Google, and normally it would pull. I did it. I couldn't find it. I put it in Reddit.
What?
I couldn't find it.
That's pretty creepy.
So I don't know whose story this is. Maybe I'll try again later and give him
That's
another.
actually really creepy.
Yeah, I don't know. But here's a Reddit story I found that I can't find again. Let me know if you find it. Quote, I cannot guarantee what I saw was the historical Enfield Monster, but regardless, it was a very strange experience. I was visiting Enfield in '86, a good 13 years after the main sightings. Mind you, I had no idea that this thing existed, nor had I heard any stories about it prior. Anyway, I'm from Chicago, as is my wife, and in 1986, we were helping her parents move into their new home in Enfield. They decided to downsize, so we spent the weekend moving them in. By night 2, everyone was exhausted. Her parents had a dog who was whiny from lack of attention during the move, and we could tell she was a bit cramped from not being able to move around much. Everyone else was dead tired, and honestly, I was too, but I offered to take the dog on a short walk. 1, because it was a nice thing to do and earned me some extra brownie points with my at-the-time girlfriend's parents, and 2, it let me have a little alone time, so to speak, as I'd spent just about every minute with them during the 2 days. A few minutes later, I'm out the door with Roxy, ready to embark on a nice little walk. It was late May and around 9:45 at night, so it was warm enough that the breeze felt nice and it was incredibly dark. I passed a few houses and tried my best to keep recognition of where I was going to make sure that I didn't get lost. Not too far away from where I left, Roxy decided to take care of her bodily duties. While I waited, I glanced around. Something caught my eye in a tree. My eyes were still adjusting to the dark, but I could make out what looked like 2 very large, reddish-orange eyes staring at me between branches. I shuddered and gave Roxy a quick yank. Thankfully, she was done, so we continued on and moved away from the tree. I started walking a bit faster, having a hard time shaking what I'd seen. Typing this out, I know it doesn't seem very scary, but the way it made me feel was dreadful. A moment later, I heard a deep thud and some scratching, like nails or claws on pavement. I whipped my head around, and I caught a tiny glimpse of something dashing away from under the tree with red eyes. I took a corner away from that tree at the next intersection, trying to get away and hoping to cut the walk a little shorter than I anticipated. A few moments later, Roxy moved to the grass and returned to a squatting pose. Unrelated, but it was at this point that I realized that I brought nothing to scoop any doggy droppings. Anyway, I wasn't thinking of that long. I was still on high alert. After she was done, her ears perked up and she was looking off in the distance. I couldn't see whatever she was looking at, and I wasn't super familiar with this dog or her mannerisms, but I could tell that she was distressed. That was when me leading the walk ended. Rather, she was pulling me back in the direction of the house. To be honest, I didn't mind heading back to the house, back inside safely with my future wife and her parents. As we hustled back to the house, Roxy stopped dead in her tracks, and this time I knew exactly why. In the distance, we saw something, and I emphasize something, cross the road in front of us. It was gray, hairy, with long, unnatural arms, and it was hard to tell in the night how quickly it walked, but I swear it looked like it had 3 legs. And I swear to God, I believed that before I read any stories about the Enfield Monster. Needless to say, I almost shit my pants right there. When we got back to the house, my future wife could tell that something was wrong, but I didn't want to tell her. 1, I didn't want to say I just saw something unbelievable and was terrified, and 2, I didn't want to freak her parents out. They just moved here after all. A few years later, I told them the story. They thankfully said that they'd never seen anything like what I described. So that's my story. Could it be the Enfield Monster? I'm not sure. But one thing is for sure, it was an absolutely crazy experience. Unquote.
That'd be a hell of a coincidence if it wasn't the same thing.
This is like 13 years later. That's crazy.
I know.
Its arms grew in 13 years.
I was thinking that too.
That's a long time.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think I've been talking a lot, so I really want to know what you think.
It sounds really similar, but also it's different. So it's like maybe those first sightings didn't talk about the length. Did they say short arms?
They said stubby.
And he said long.
He said long.
Maybe he meant the legs are long.
Maybe. I mean, it seems like it was far enough away where it was a little hard to discern exactly what he was seeing.
Yeah, so maybe if he means the legs were long, that makes sense.
He did say he thought he saw 3 legs, though. So he seemed to identify or differentiate between the arms and the legs.
I don't know. It's
just another kangaroo, man.
Maybe. There's got a breeding population of kangaroos out there.
Let's talk about that and the Enfield Monster in the discussion. All right, so before we get to the discussion, we like to stop the episode and thank our newest patrons who, as of the recording of this podcast, are Dre and Laura. Charlie, my good friend Charlie. There's a lot happening in the Patreon.
Always.
And I'd be lying to you if I didn't already say me and Charlie are talking about more. always thinking and plotting. That sounds evil, but it's not. It's fun. But why don't you talk about some of the stuff or one of the stuff of the things that we happen to do over on our Patreon?
Sure. One of the stuff that we do is we have this little thing called Beyond the Bizarre, where it's not really about paranormal things or anything like that. It's just about if you want to get to know our lives a little bit more, you're curious about what we're going through, what's going on with us, we talk about everything.
Maybe one day we'll be paranormal.
Maybe one, that's a dark way to put that, but yeah, maybe one day.
It's probably the only true piece of behind the scenes content that we provide. Because like for instance, this most recent Beyond the Bizarre, we talked about our trip to Gettysburg.
Yeah.
What we did beyond the hour and a half we were streaming live. We talked about being vendors on Front Street and those experiences and traveling. So it's It's really the only time we really front load that stuff.
Yeah, we talk about our families and stuff too. It's the only time that we really get into that.
Yeah. It's fun. It's easy stuff because it's life, you know?
It's fun.
One thing that I want to highlight is called Bizarre News. What do we talk about on the podcast? We talk about stories. We talk about urban legends. We talk about encounters and sightings. What we don't really talk about on the podcast are legitimate, strange news stories. And that's what this segment is all about. Once a month, we grab 4 to 5, maybe 6. I'll be honest, it's never really 6. 4 to 5 news stories that are strange, supernatural, like Bigfoot sightings, alien encounters, weird things happening in space, conspiracies, all that fun stuff. And we talk about it on Bizarre News. But there's so much more. There's quizzes, there's games. You can get t-shirts, hoodies, enamel pins. That's coming up, y'all, by the way. Only 6 weeks left of this enamel pin, and it is gone forever.
It's only 6 weeks left of this
6
year.
weeks left of this year.
That's crazy.
So if you want this enamel pin, you need to join the not tier before January 1st.
That's disgusting. I can't believe that.
There will be a new one, a new pin next year, but this pin, it's retired. It hits the Hall of Fame. You're gone. You're out of here. No more will be purchased. But there's a lot of fun segments, bonus content. So if you like the podcast, you want a little bit more, go check that out. But with that said, let's get back to the main episode. All right, Charlie, I have 2 main questions for you. We can elaborate further. We can go into some of the encounters and things like that. But here is my first question.
Yes.
Do you think it's more likely that it was something misidentified or something that never truly existed? Like, misidentified that it's a creature or something, like it really happened and it's not it's not the Enfield Monster. It's something rational, but it was misidentified, or never existing, that it was both Greg and McDaniels thought they saw something and maybe it just grew into like a fabrication of that.
No, I think it's highly unlikely that they just made it up at the same time for no reason. I think if it was anything that was not supernatural, it was misidentified. A misidentified thing.
Okay. So second question, do you think it's more likely that it's a cryptid or an alien?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to say, from the evidence that you presented.
My story.
Well, I think it's an alien. I think it's more likely it's an alien. Because there's no mythos around this thing before, right? There's no, like, American tribes that were like the 3-legged creature.
I did find one of my sources did say that they called this area, not specifically Enfield, but the area, and not the triangle that we joked about earlier, the Devil's Kitchen. And that this Native American tribe claimed to see shadows and to hear screeches and stuff. And they thought it was not necessarily a cursed area, but that there was something creepy going on, and it was nicknamed the Devil's Kitchen. I felt like this episode had enough focused on the Enfield. Like, sometimes you'll do an episode and you're like, I can add a little more to make it fit like that 45 minutes to an hour. This one, I felt good about where I was at, so I didn't expand upon that. Plus, I didn't find that in any of my other articles. If it was a reoccurring
it was
thing
just
that was mentioned. Yeah. So I don't want to put too much weight into that because it was just one offhand thing, and I don't want to say this is what they said, and everyone's gonna be like, "No, they didn't. You're dumb." And I don't want to put my name on that when I only saw it one time and I didn't go deep into it. So I do want to say there's something potentially there, but it wasn't like they said it had 3 legs and was gray. And
screeching in dark shadows is different than a giant great monster, right?
There is screeching, like Rick Rainbow got the screeching. And shadows could just be a gray thing at night moving around things. But I'm not saying that I think there's a definite parallel between the Devil's Kitchen and the Enfield Monster.
I kind of like my idea that maybe this is some kind of alien mutant reject.
It could even be your other idea that it's a U.S. or like a government military reject.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a naturally occurring creature that you'd find in Illinois.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. It feels it because I can't think of any other animal that has 3 legs like that.
It feels like it came from somewhere. Very much like when we did the episode, Are Humans from Earth?
Yeah.
Like, to me, humans feel like we came from somewhere. Like, it doesn't seem like we live on Earth, but humans don't really feel like they're of Earth to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it seems like this, okay, if this is real, if this is true, the Enfield Monster lives in Enfield, Illinois, but it doesn't feel like it's of. And it's not like when you open a book, you're like, oh, and here you see deer, and we have squirrels, and you might find this bird. You know, it's like, it's not like oh, it's known for this area. Like, it's here, but it doesn't feel like that's where it's supposed to be. So whether it was
it's like an implant,
or whether it is like some military experiment. So, okay, I guess the last question would be, is it more likely it's that, or it was just a mistaken kangaroo? So kind of it's taking your answer from question 1 and from question 2.
Yeah.
And putting them against each other.
I don't know.
What do you think?
It's hard. The first one, you could say, yeah, it might be a kangaroo. This kid's 10. I mean, you know, he just got scared. But the McDaniels is harder because he swears that it's not a kangaroo. And he claims he shot it. And it did nothing.
That is a detail we haven't really touched on much. That's a good point.
Yeah, he claimed.
Kangaroos are tough. Yeah, they're strong.
Not that tough.
I don't think they're taking bullets. Kangaroo Jack.
Yeah, they would have found that body, I think.
Samurai Jack, not Kangaroo Jack. Dodging bullets. You know,
I don't
think that's a good point.
I don't know. I don't think it's a kangaroo. I think it's something else.
Okay, so the final bit here, and this isn't mistaken identity. This isn't kangaroo. This is this entity as its own entity, not as a mistaken kangaroo or raccoon or anything. The Enfield Monster as it is presented in the story. Believable, viable, skeptical, unbelievable. I'm going to go first. I'm going to go viable, and I'm not close to believable. I don't feel close to believable, but I don't know what else it could be. I think I agree. Like, even I would think that the mass hysteria, the groupthink, could be everything almost after this night. I think people could trick themselves into seeing a deer or seeing something and thinking it is that legendary Enfield Monster because there's bias. These people are coming here biased. But the first night with the Garrett boy and with McDaniels, there was no bias. Completely unexpected. They thought it was going to be a dog or a cat, or McDaniels did.
Yeah.
And then they both reported the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Something was out there. And I don't think we can chalk it up to a kangaroo or something else.
I'm going to be real honest. I'm close to skeptical and viable. And I did say I don't think it's a kangaroo. I don't think it could have been something else. I don't think it was made up. So that leaves me at least viable. Because the first 2 stories, you're right. There had to be something. And after that, you're right. It could have been mass hysteria.
I think everything after that is, up for debate.
Yes.
So to speak.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Because you can't completely shut it down, but also there's no hard proof or anything.
Yeah. So what are you picking?
Viable.
So that is our episode on the Enfield Monster, a.k.a. the Enfield Horror, a.k.a. Kangaroo Jack.
I still think you should hyphen it. Horror Monster.
Horror/monster. But thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode and hanging out with us for the last hour or so. It's a fun story. Fun, unique story.
Fun story is a good way to put that, yeah.
I heard of it before.
I've never heard of this before.
It'd have been a good one to quiz you on then, apparently.
It would have been a great one. I would not got this.
Well, I'll have to have the quiz for you on Patreon next time.
Next time.
Speaking of, if you're caught up on all of our content, you want a little bit more, quizzes, fun games, watch movies with us, director's cuts, merch. We have all of that and so much more over on Patreon. Search Believing the Bizarre. We have multiple tiers, 4 of them to be exact. And check it out and see if there's one that fits with the kind of bonus content you're looking for.
We do. And also, if you're interested in kind of a community thing, we haven't mentioned this for a while. We have our Discord. Someone mentioned that to us earlier. It's like, what's the link? And we've got this, it's a pretty big Discord community going on. And if you want to talk to like-minded people it's a huge place to do that.
We need to stop in. We need to like reintroduce ourselves.
I went in there recently.
I need to like put on a suit. Like, hello, I know it's been a minute.
Yeah. I am Tyler and I am Charlie.
Allow me to reintroduce I remember one time I posted, it was like a wild Tyler sighting. I feel bad. It's honestly, it's a little bit of like being spread a little thin between like different, you know, because we try to be everywhere. You want to be everywhere. You want to be on Facebook. You want to be on Instagram. You want to be on Twitter. We're not really on Twitter. Discord, you know, all this stuff. It's like you gotta have your hands in everything, but then you get exhausted.
You only got so many fingers.
Only so many, but we're out there. We need 3 legs. That's what we need. Each of us.
Yes.
But then we'd have stubby little arms. And then we might not be real.
I do have stubby arms anyway, so.
So thank you, everybody, for listening. Also, if you liked it, feel free to leave a review on Apple or Spotify. We check them out. We appreciate them. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre,
a podcast as bizarre as you are.